Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to Match Day. I'm Vint, and we have Ian back from his power outage from yesterday. Welcome back, boss. And then we have our guest today, our special guest today, and friend, good friend, Adrian Parrish, who is right now with FC Cincinnati and their academy program. So I'm going to go ahead and first off, Adrian, let's just do an audio check and make sure we got you.
Well, there you go. Well, little test. We all good?
Perfect.
Yeah, you're good.
There we go.
So, Adrian, thank you so much for coming on and taking time. Really excited about this presentation. And we were talking a little bit beforehand on the air, but maybe you can share some of the stuff that they were talking about beforehand. But
Sure.
For the most part, I've known you for a long time. Ian's known you for a long time. But some people that are watching this now and even later don't know you. So maybe just kind of share your journey. How did you get from England to here and to actually landing with FC Cincinnati? So again,
So first off, greatly appreciate you guys having me on. Thoroughly enjoyed working with both of you for many of years, probably over the past 15 or so years that I've been in this area. But I have been in the US now for 20 years. Was at a club in England previous to that, a small club called Grimsby Town. We only sing when we're fishing, which was a professional club. Probably Grimsby is better known for its fish and chips than it is for its football. But came to the US, started just doing soccer camps, Vince, like a lot of fellow Brits, just doing camps, and then stayed, worked for a small camp company doing that. I went to the wonderful sunny city of Buffalo, New York, and stayed there for 2 years as a director coaching for a club. And then that's when you and I met when I took on the position, and Ian and I took on the position as the state technical director for Kentucky Youth Soccer, which I stayed in that role for 14 years, which is a long time.
it is.
Learned lots from you, learned lots from Ian through doing the coaching education, doing the Olympic development program. Worked in the Olympic development program in Region 1, Region 2, Region 3, and done, work for US Soccer on coaching education, done some work for you guys on coaching education, which has been great. And then FC Cincinnati obviously started the MLS franchise here, and I just started on a part-time role to start off with, and continue to do the coaching education for Kentucky Youth Soccer about a year ago, and then in February, FC Cincinnati offered me full-time position, which I took with their academy, and since I've been at the FC Cincinnati, I've basically had 3 or 4 roles already. And that's been U13 head coach, which I am now, affiliate coordinator, which I am also doing, discovery program, and then a coach or director or coordinator, and U17 assistant coach. So as we've grown the club, a lot of different roles and responsibilities I've taken on it in such a short space of time. But it's great to be involved in a professional club and a professional environment again after being away from it 20 plus years. So
Yeah, no, thank you, and fantastic coaching educator you are, and I'm sure, when we were coaching educators, one of the hardest things for us was not getting on the fields enough, right? So now you're in that environment. How's that feel, right? You can get on the fields now all the time, and
Yeah, I mean, that's what we want to do. It's in our blood, right, Vince? It's we're coaches, and it's very difficult if we're trying to tell people how to become a coach or help them become a coach or educate them when we're not sharpening our own tools ourselves on a daily basis, being coaching, and it helps. I mean, I get so much enjoyment. Obviously we've gone through COVID.
Yeah,
I'm still going through it, and it's a battle. We're facing battles ourselves, but I remember coming back in this fall and being able to write my first lesson plan again, and so excited. And Vince, you know I love writing lesson plans anyway.
No.
Yeah. But then you actually get to write them, and you actually get to use them.
Yes.
And that's the difference. Whereas we was always writing them, and then you and I had the conversation I think last week on a different webinar thing, but when you get to use them and you get to write them, you sometimes get those aha moments where you go like, oh, I should have done this with the goals, or hey, I could have changed these players and put them there. And that's when you go back, and that's where you get the satisfaction of being able to put your work into actual work as well. You know.
Yeah. No, thank you. So speaking of training, I think the focus today, what I've, we had Liam Lacey on yesterday who did a wonderful presentation on, fantastic presentation on goal analysis from the MLS's back tournament. It was fantastic. Actually, he's on. It looks like according to the attendee list. So he's.
So you're putting pressure on me already.
Yeah, no. He's a wonderful coach and person. Yeah, so let's go ahead and just start your slide, and I'll do that here in a minute, your presentation. But I thought this week I'd try to make it more about soccer because we're getting back on the fields, some of us, not all of us. We talked about beforehand how we have to maybe approach lesson planning a little differently today because of our times. But like here where I'm at, we don't have to. I mean, we can just go. We're not limited to group numbers. My son is in Ohio as a college coach. He can only train 10 players at a time as a college coach. So that's challenging, right? Do you have that challenge?
No, we don't. We've actually got a lot of, we're allowed all of the players, but we do have cohorts.
Okay.
So like 13s and 14s, which are classified as the pre-academy, they train together. They can actually train and play together. Our 15s, 17s, and 19s, they all have to train separately. A player cannot move between any of the cohorts, neither. So even though we have the full squad of 15s and the full squad in 13s and 14s, a 15 can't move up to the 17s,
right,
or move down. However, that is for games and for practice. So right now we have one of our U19 players who's performing exceptionally well. In fact, is our academy director, or his director of player development, Larry Sunderland. His son is training with the first team. But he's a U19 player. He can't move down and actually play with us until the COVID restrictions have lifted. So cohorts, you have to stay there, and because the academy is very, very lucky, Vince, in the aspects that we get to use the first team training facility as well. So we share the facility with the first team. So our COVID restrictions are all about, to be honest with you, keeping everything clean. Keeping everything clean, keeping everything separate, and educating the kids as well how to act off the pitch when they're away from MHTC. So,
Adrian, just to clarify, normally without COVID, a true example of a club where you're moving players all the time and putting them in. So as the U13, U14 coach, on a given day, you could lose 3 of your strongest players to the U15s, and that's your job, right?
Yep, 100%. That's my job, is to push those players up, and that's one of the great things that we're in this role as player developers. There are player developers, the player users. As academy coaches, we are player developers of trying to develop players to move through. So
it's interesting, and I can get on my soapbox just a little bit. Obviously, in the normal youth realm where most of our listeners are from, that is very difficult to do. But if you really want to be a youth club, pay-to-play club, and you really want to be a club, then the movement of players to the best of your ability should be part of that, right?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and I'll give you an example. We also have late developers. You and I've had that discussion where we can have players who might be physically not ready, mature enough, not ready yet, but they can move down and they can play with our younger teams as well. And they can only do that for 3 months, though, because we want them to develop and move back up into their own cohort or into their own team. But it's a 3-month span, and we review that every 3 months with them. So
okay, very cool. So I will start your slideshow, and then I'm going to let you just kind of take over, and you can direct it as much as you want. And those on the other end, we aren't sharing this deck today. We apologize, but just FYI, because I usually get those questions. So again, I apologize. But go ahead, Coach, and you can control it.
Sure, I appreciate it again there, Vincent. Yeah, the reason we're just not sharing is because some of this material is material that comes from the first team down through the academy. So even though it is about building an academy training session, there are some items in here which have been used by the first team, and there are some items which I cannot share as well. So the academy itself is about 2 years old. We're entering our second season. So I think most people think that we have all the answers because we are an MLS academy. That's not the case. We are still experimenting on how we're growing. We realize that we are looking to play one way is not the only way that we will play. Ian asked me the question beforehand about is there a connection between the first team all the way down to the U13s? The short answer of it is yes. All right. The long answer of it is obviously we are always still going to do things slightly different because, as I mentioned just a little bit there earlier, Yap, who's the first team coach, he's a player user because he has to get results. We're player developers. We're developing players, so hopefully Yap can use them one day in the West End Stadium. One thing that I do love about the club that I'm at here, guys, is that we are continuously looking to develop. We are very open-minded as a group of coaches. I believe Larry Sunderland has brought in an excellent staff where we work together and we listen to each other, and that kind of is how we develop with each other. And there's always open dialogue. COVID has stopped us from actually going down to our training center, but we have daily meetings as well as the staff to discuss lesson plans, to discuss players, to discuss game preparation and everything. So this is stuff as well that can also still take place with grassroots clubs. I don't understand, COVID doesn't necessarily have to stop that from happening.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning of COVID, I jumped on, in my old role as the technical director for Kentucky and told clubs this. Derek Willis, who's the director there now, asked me to jump on, and I recommended that to club directors. Hey, still have this type of dialogue, keep it going, help you keep growing as coaches. So, but the idea of what we always want to do as well, one of our roles at FC Cincinnati is to be very visible within the community. So it's very important that we want to inspire people by sharing. So it's not necessarily a closed door when we do training sessions. With our affiliates, we allow our affiliate teams to come in and basically we want them to. Sorry, my emails might be jumping up on you there.
No, we're fine. We can't see you.
Okay, cool. We want to inspire coaches to also better themselves as well. We're not saying that we have the answers. We're not saying we have everything because we're not going to come out and give you the curriculum and give you 1,000,001drills.com because that's not the case. We'll share lesson plans and we'll share ideas, and we want to inspire coaches that are welcome to come and watch any of our academy training sessions as well. So if there are anybody that is listening on here, Vince, one of the things I can share at the end is more than happy to share my contact details where people can reach out to me if they are in the Cincinnati area. Once COVID restrictions have lifted, if they want to come and watch training sessions, they're more than welcome to as well. So,
thank you. That's great.
So, style of play. How do we look to play? I believe Ian. I'll steal this one from me, and that anytime that you'd put the word Barcelona on front of anything, everyone would be rushing to it. Well, they used to be, and who knows right now with all the drama that they're going through. But we do have a style of play which we want to dictate the game and retain possession and create opportunities for our players. We want to be able to build from the back like everybody does. So we want to have this style that goes all the way through from our 13s up to our 19s. And so the idea is to move the ball, to move players, to create the advantage. So when we're looking at positional play, it's not necessarily, some people, you might look at positional play and you're looking at the numbers of where we play. We try to have every player be capable of playing as the number 10. So it'd be a 10+1. So if you're a 10+1, you're the goalkeeper. If you're a 10+2, you're the right back. But you have all the qualities of being able to play as a centre midfielder. So when we're looking at players, can we develop players that could all our players still have the abilities to play in the middle of the park? Why? Because we want to be able to build up. We want to be able to unbalance our players at the opposition. So when we're unbalancing them and we're moving the ball and we're building up, you've got to have players that are capable and that are comfortable on the ball. However, obviously, one of the things that we always teach our players as well is when we're in possession and when we are building, we need to teach them to also be defensively organized, because there are moments within the game, as I'll come in there, which are transitional moments where you'll lose the ball. So the organization is, again, can we win the ball high if we lose it? Just win the ball back as quickly as possible. But we also want risk takers as well in the game. Yeah, so they've got to be strong mentally to be able to understand that mistakes are going to be happening. We're very, very good as a staff. I want to say that when we write our lesson plans and we design our curriculum, that we also write it out to help players to have to think. I think a lot of times when you write lesson plans, people will write a lesson plan of like, okay, well, let's just help them technically and tactically. We're dealing with high-level performing players, so we want them to be able to think for themselves, take risks for themselves, and then how do they deal with that when those mistakes happen? And that's kind of a task, I would say, that we're all getting used to as a staff of. That's because we've been so used to, it's like, okay, let's just write a lesson plan just to, fit them tactically on what we want to accomplish.
Right. No, it's fantastic. Yep. No, it's good.
Yeah. No, it's difficult, Vince. It's difficult as you do it, as you're riding it. How can you fit that in?
Yeah.
We also, as a style of play, we have to have a plan B, because sometimes we have to play against these opponents, and we have to change the game on how we play against them. And that is more towards the older ages within the academy. Our 13s, 14s in the pre-academy aren't necessarily that case, but we still need to educate them that plan B may change. So
no, I'm just going to pause you real quick and you can move on.
Sure.
I love that. Just at the end there, plan B. So like this high school group of kids that I work with, I can see them. I can see as a coach saying, look, here's plan A. We want to go down the middle, but plan B is what? So you got to get them to think on the field, what's plan B while we're playing?
Yeah.
What is it? So I think it's great. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and a lot of this as well, Vincent, and this is why I've really, really always enjoyed working with you and Ian. It's not necessarily, again, about curriculum, like I said. When we're dealing with clubs and when Larry deals with us as coaches, it's always about the methodology of how we talk to the players.
Yeah.
So when people come in to watch these training sessions, or when people come to your convention that you do, I think a lot of people always expect, okay, oh wow, I was expecting this brand new activity that was going to be boom, lighting everything up. People need to look at the way that you actually coach. It's the methodology of how you deliver the message.
Yeah.
So like you said there, that's why you've always got to have plan B, because then the players can think.
Yeah. Oh, it's brilliant.
At the end of the day, it's like we designed the session for how we want to play, but we have to play against somebody else who's going to try and stop us from playing the way that we want to play.
Right.
So, sorry about this slide here. So just a little bit as we plan, into the periodization and the tactical things. So one, we look at it tactically, including our principles. We normally go like with a 2-to-1 or 2-2-1. Right now we're in where we'll do 2 attacking, 2 defending, and then we always kind of finish with a shooting activity on time in the week. I don't think we ever do that enough. I could get on my soapbox a little bit about that. I feel like we always, when kids show up to training, and a little bit different with us, but I'm talking about in the grassroots level. I used to used to stop kids from shooting in the goal.
Yeah.
And, they'd line up and they would shoot and they'd have fun doing it, right? And they'd enjoy it. And I went to Holland a few years back, and I was at Feyenoord, and they had goals all over the place, and kids were shooting everywhere before training.
Yeah.
I always think, well, why do we stop that? Kids love doing that. Kids enjoy doing that, and so just let them do it and let them practice that. So we always have one shooting session, one finishing session for them all at the end of the week as well. So with the academy, especially with the pre-academy, we're just on a weekly plan. We're a weekly plan, and as we build, we're building for the week and looking on that. It's been very, very different this fall. We haven't played a game yet. By now, we'd have probably even played some preseason friendlies. With this weekend coming, may have been our opening weekend, but it's not the case. So we plan with the idea of basically still preparing for the match. With the underload is your match preparation. Our academy players usually are on a GPS, so we can work out the workload on how they're doing. With a pre-academy, we ask them at the end of a training to rate that training on how hard they worked. So they put in their RPEs of like between 1 to 10 on how hard they worked.
Yep.
So that they're young enough. They still haven't. A lot of them still haven't gone through maturity or puberty yet. So we use their RPEs so we can judge on them. Okay, yeah, you was tired yesterday. You've gone with 6 RPEs. Maybe we now have to come and lower the level of the training session that we're doing. You can't go to kids and say, "Hey, go at 80%."
Right.
Just go at 80% today. We always ask our kids to go at 100%. So how do we then change it physically? We just change the amount of time that we train.
Yeah.
All right. So we always ask our kids within a training session, whenever we're planning, go 100%. If you're tired, it might only be in a 40-minute training session, and then we have to manage that. So one of the things that we do normally do as well is we have individual player development plans. So every player has their own plan on what things that they're working for. Sometimes throughout the season, we have the IDP training sessions where they'll come in and they train with us, a couple of them in blocks. So it may be all the midfielders come in or the strikers, defenders. It may be relationships as well, where we might bring the outside backs and the right wingers or the wingers coming in. So it depends on what we're wanting to work on. But we normally try and build the session around our higher performing players and do that from there. So that we add on to that. So that's just an extra part that I just threw in there for free for these guys. And again, I recommended this to any grassroots clubs. It's things that you could do with your clubs as well. So
No, it's great.
So our game model, and as we build it and we do it, we go from big to small, small to big. There's usually the players come in. There's an activation that they start with. Well, then we still include a lot of tag games, and we're kind of happy that some of our COVID restrictions have been lifted a little bit because we're a big believer in the tag games because of movement and how the players can move around, and not just for that, but kids love it, right?
Yeah.
Kids love it, and I know you're the king of tag games as well, Vince. On creating fun games for us. So, mate, I'm about 3 weeks in, so I'll soon be running short of tag games. So I'll have to contact you.
Yeah, no, love it. I need to get down there and just watch you train. That'd be great.
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah. But the tag games are massive for us in players' movement. We're not a big believer in even up to our 17s and 19s about, hey, let's get out the rings, let's get out the speed ladders and the hurdles. We want them moving like they naturally would, because kids don't play anymore, right? Kids don't play on the streets. They don't know those type of things. So we'll include a tag game usually. Then what will usually happen is we'll go big. Mm-hmm. So we may go with a big activity first. So we'll do the larger activity so we can understand getting our style of play out or getting a moment of game out. So we'll go into a phase of play that might be large. Then we'll break it down to small so we can bring out the sub-principle or the principle that we're trying to work on. All right, so we go from big to small and then back from small back to big again.
Okay.
So we'll basically work on what would maybe be a larger group. So it might be 2 lines of something that we're trying to do. Then we break it down to include a sub-principle, which could even be simple, something as simple as 2 versus 2 or 3 versus 3.
Okay.
We do that a lot with our 15s through 19s because of spacing.
Yep.
With our 13s and 14s, we're still very, very big on getting our players to understand our style of play. So we're still doing a lot of possession games with them, getting them comfortable on the ball. So when we're building our lesson plans, we're looking at our style of play, which may include some game moments or some principles. 15s and above, we obviously start focusing more on the sub-principles and the phases of play with them as well. Concepts and cues. So you got to bring the concepts and cues out, obviously, during the small activities that we do with them too. So,
no, it's good.
Yeah. And guys, Vince, if anybody has any questions at any time, they're more than welcome to fire them across. So, forgot to
I'll share while you're talking. I'll share your email if that's okay. Can I share your email? Okay.
Yeah, share my email, share it, and then I know Ian's tweeted my Twitter handle out as well, so happy to do that. But usually email is the best way to contact me.
Great.
So yeah. So I put this one up on. Sorry, yeah, I put that. I went back. I did it a little bit differently. So this one should have gone previously. So when we're talking about how do we play, well, I'll use this one in now because we talk about our 13s and 14s. This is what we're looking at with them, and we're talking about our possession. So our possession is basically how we're going to play. These are the 4 moments we focus on, defensive moments, and then there's obviously that wonderful moment of the transition, which a lot of people still kind of struggle of like, hey, let's just focus a training session on transition. We put the transition in the actual activities itself.
Right.
So back to the previous one, our transition training sessions still take place within our game moments and our phases of play.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I had an instructor on our staff, United Soccer Coaches, ask me, why don't we have a separate training session on transition? I'm like, well, shouldn't it just be in everything?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we argued, and I won eventually. But anyway, so go ahead, please do.
So when we talk about I'm going to keep going back and forth between these two slides here. So when we talk about our style, obviously in here we're talking about the way we possess. We talk about the way that we don't possess. That's again with the little guys. However, we still need to deliver that a lot with our 15s, 17s, and 19s right now because we have new players in. We built a culture last year with the teams that we come in, but we are an MLS development academy where it is our job to produce players to move through to the first team. So we couldn't necessarily, offer everyone another deal where they come back for another year. They unfortunately had to be cuts. So you are rebuilding some of the things and going over a lot of the principles again and through the moments again. So we're in that moment, I'd say, a lot with a lot of our teams right now anyway. So, but in here, our possession is obviously trying to build, building out the back through the thirds. When the opponents have it, can we win it back as quickly as possible? Can we live by the 5-second rule? If we can't, can we get it in? Can we defend centrally? So we almost, or not defend centrally, but we try to defend the direct game channel. So wherever the ball is, can we get numbers behind it? Can we, our possession as well, the other way is, can we take the team to one side? Can't win. Can we go out and go out the other way? All right. So can we get numbers over? Can we do that? Also, then that's the same out of possession. Okay. Right. Can we create numbers up to stop them from getting through us? All right. So we can go to goal. All right. So it's just, that's the transitional moment. So anytime that we write up a lesson plan, we focus on all aspects. All right. So if we're doing a in possession activity, so if we're talking about, hey, building out of the back, we would also focus on that. And last year was so much easier because we had head coaches and assistant coaches. I was assistant coach with the 17s. I would be focusing on the non-focus team. So I would be working on the high, them pressing in the building third. So it'd be in the nigh third phase. So that's what we'd be working on. So that's, as we did that, it was a lot easier. This year, obviously, we are just all head coaches. We don't have assistant coaches right now. But when we write the lesson plan, we still make sure that we have goals and targets for the opposition. So the focus group that we're not working on, we still want to make sure that we have something, whether that's some type of restriction. I don't like to use the word restriction, but some kind of manipulation, that would help bring that point out as well. So
yeah, like a constraint kind of, right?
Constraint. Yeah. Sorry, that word was in the back of this big head, Vince. So
it's all right. You still look like Jason Statham. Everything's good.
So I'll just show you a little few of our activities on some of the things that we've kind of done with our 13s and 14s, and obviously, don't want to take up too many of people's times, but so this would be the idea in here. So from here, these would be an idea. You can you see my mouse rolling over this, Vince?
No, we can't.
So the first one in the top.
What are you doing?
Okay,
top left.
That one there, yeah.
There you go.
That
Yep.
one. Okay, so that's just a little rondo. So we always, I think most people like you, and Ian, because I know we've had this discussion. We still do rondos. We don't have a problem with doing rondos. That's a positional based rondo where we're actually working with our back four, trying to break the lines.
Interesting.
All right?
So here you've got this line here where I'm getting ready to draw. So this will be the back four.
Yep.
And then looks like maybe you got some wingers.
Yep.
And this might represent another line.
Correct.
Okay.
Has a purpose to it.
Yeah. So what is it? So the defending team, what happens here?
And defending team. So this is just a rondo to start off with. So if the defending team win it, all they have to do is connect a pass. Now they are restricted to the boxes there as well. Okay. So, but last night I did a rondo where if you won it, you actually had a target player to play out, and then you go to goal. So it includes the transitional moment. So you build on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we want that transitional moment, like you just said, Vince. It comes out naturally within the activities. So this back four are trying to move the ball around and trying to just break lines. So that one of our sub principles is, can you break the lines by playing through the gaps?
Yeah.
So we look to play through the gaps. So the sub principle there is obviously against the opposition would be just, hey, close gaps.
Yeah.
So we look to try and play through the gaps. Can you create the gaps? Play through the gaps. That's what we're always trying to do. We want our back four or our back three, whichever we're going to play with, being comfortable on trying to play the ball out of the back. Hence why we said make mistakes. They'll make mistakes in this game, right? They're going to make mistakes. Short, tight. Then it's again, how do you deal with it? Can you get that diagonal one through? Can you not be afraid, or are you just continuously playing a lot from back four along the whole entire back line?
Yeah, that's great. It's really good.
So then we moved over to this the one on the top right, and one of the things that we like to do, and this still kind of focuses a little bit on it, is we talked about the back line. So this would be focusing on our two centre backs. So we've gone kind of small.
Gotcha.
All right. So like I said, with the 13s and 14s, we'd still go small. With the 15s and 17s and 19s, they may go to the bottom one first, then come back to this one.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Because we are still building them in our style of play. So they understand it. Yeah. So now with our 15s and above, they're still trying to understand a little bit more about the moments and the principles as well. So, so we want our, again, centre backs, all they can do on this one, the two centre backs you can see is their job is pass to one another, then just can dribble out and join in to just create like a 4 versus 3. And then the aim is just to play it into the other two target players at the top. So basically they just play for both teams, the target players do. So
okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Even though they're as grey, they're still, then once they've got it in, then it's just a moment where you drop back in there and you now become you're defending. So you get a point when you're just playing it in. So
okay. All right. Good.
And then we're looking at the movement, the vertical and the horizontal movement of the midfield three. So now we're coming out of our build phase into our kind of our unbalanced phase. So I think when we look at phases of play and we look at moments of the game, and I know this from coaching education, you look at a moment a lot of the times and you look at the phase of it and you think, well, that's just the session. It's just there. So if I'm doing building out the back, you only think I only need to deal with that bottom third as you're building out. Well, the success is going into that, what most people would call the midfield third, we call the unbalancing third.
Okay.
So that's why now we incorporate the midfielders into there as well. So
okay. Very good.
Yeah.
All right.
And then the bottom one, incorporating the goalkeepers. So now it would be like keepers included. So the transitional moment now is obviously, I think I'll maybe switch the teams around that the Greys are doing it. So the strikers is trying to play in, and you kind of, with this one really was more of a dealing with the vertical and horizontal movement of the midfield three, but I think it's a midfield three, because we're working with the Grey team. The Blues are restricted to their boxes. The Greys can move anywhere within their boxes,
right?
And they can receive it, in that box. But a blue has to do it. So you're trying to create a numbers up by playing the 2-on-1 in a box in that area to try and dribble out into that goal at the top. If Blues win it, they go to goal. This is one of the great things that we have dialogue about. You know, I did this with our U17 coach, and then, you know, went across and did it with our U13s. He did the session the same night, because we normally all do the same type of session of some level.
Okay.
And then, but then he's building it, he added wingers into that. So like, and he had players coming in, you know, so now when we, so we would have the wingers out wide, so that when the Greys could play out to a winger and dribble out into the goals as well. So there was different areas that they could play into too.
All right.
And I think that's, like I said, Vince, this is one of the things that's been great for me personally.
Yeah.
Back on the pitch on a daily basis, and being back in an environment where you can have this dialect on a daily basis. But one of the big things I believe, and maybe Ian and yourself will agree, is that a lot of youth clubs don't necessarily get coaches together to have these conversations.
Right. Yes. They're not a club. They're like a collection of teams.
Yeah, you're on an island, right, as a coach. You know, so, and I think it's important, guys. If you want to grow, that you have to do this. You have to open up and try and have these conversations with whether your technical directors. And it's funny, I was speaking to a female coach a couple of weeks back, and she was saying my technical director just doesn't help me. And she called up, and I was talking to her and was having this conversation, and she's just like, wow, it's just, again, so it's no secret for us, you know. I mean, like I said, I can't share our sub principles and our principles, because that's from first team all the way down. But there is no secret on how we coach and what we do. We want to be open. We want to be open as an academy to help coaches as well as help players. So
no, thank you. This has been fantastic, and you've given us a lot of time. Let me put my camera back on. But and just listening to the message, and you know, it's funny because we're about 150 of these in, 55 of these in, and it seems like every time there's a soccer type presentation, it's all similar. I mean, it's you know, we got to be connected. We can't just do things individually. We got to work together with other people. We got to, you know, all those little things. You know, when you plan, it's an intentional plan, right? It's not just planning to plan. Boss, I think your best person is, anyway. But
and I think one of the things that we always, when we plan, then again, going back to now being back on the field, one of the things that we always used to think, I was like, you know, neutrals, jokers, whatever we want to call them, they've got to have a purpose. They've got to have something behind them. You know, the way that you score has to have a purpose. The constrictions that you've got to have on it has to have a purpose, whether that's for your focus team or your non-focus team, has to have a purpose to get out what you're trying to teach. You know, and so sometimes we do it especially with neutral players. Right? I would just throw them out there just because I've got too many players.
Yeah, right.
You know? So, and one of the things we had last year is like when we was focusing on defending with our defensive team, and we would with a defensive principle, and we would throw a neutral in, your principles go out the window.
Period. Yeah.
Because now the kids look at it and go like, well, who's defending the neutral?
Yeah.
Turn around and say, well, the neutral's not going to be there on Saturday. Don't worry about it. Well, then you might as well throw your training session out the window.
Right.
So you're better off playing numbers up or defending numbers down.
Yeah, and just letting them learn how to play numbers up and numbers down as opposed to putting neutrals in. Yeah. That's great. Boss, we have any questions in the chat box that I missed?
No, I don't see questions. I mean, if I can sort of take a summary of what Adrian's presented, it's an MLS academy. So it's not completely replicable in grassroots soccer in Indiana or Philadelphia. However, it's a club, so there is communication amongst all the coaches, and there is a club ethos, which I think youth clubs in America can do better with. Mm-hmm. They plan everything, and we can all plan, maybe not to the amount of time that a professional staff can, but we can plan. And then I think the big takeaway too, and I put it in the chat box, is when they do an activity, there's a reason for it. Now, it might not work. It might not be the reason that somebody else would do, but they do it because they play with the back four or they play with the six. And so for me, club and an ethos, planning, and then intention and a rationale. I think it's if it's good enough for FC Cincinnati, it should be good enough for the rest of us, and we should be able to execute it in our environments, whatever they are.
No, I agree 100%, Ian. You know, having been in the I think grassroots environment with a technical director for 14 years, trying to educate people to do this, and people I think will always use the excuse, "Oh, it's time." But you know, if you've got the time to actually go out there and work with the kids, you've got the time to also plan correctly.
Yes.
Well, I would say as well, the time you put in prep, and for a mum or dad coach, it's, you know, maybe just thinking about it or writing something on a napkin at lunchtime. But your training is more efficient, you're happier, and the kids are happier. So that 5-10 minutes or that 60 minutes of prep pays massive dividends. So it's like a little investment, right? And it pays off.
And I'll give you this as a bit here now. Our 13s are obviously new, our 14s are new in the club, not been used to academy environments, or may have been used to a DA environment, but not an MLS academy environment.
Yep.
They can see that we prep, and they come in and the training sessions. We only actually train with them 70 minutes right now at each session. We don't need to go longer because that's the game time that they play as well.
Gotcha.
They come in and they train, and then they've already gone, "It's training over already?" I was like, "Yeah." You know, because even though they don't have GPSs, one of our ways of looking at it is just like, okay, because we put our expected RPEs of what we expect of the players on our training sessions. So we estimate what they think it may be, so then we can check it the next day. So then when they come in and they say, "Oh, it was a 4:05," but you know, 70 minutes, it's like boom, and it goes. So when because we've planned and we take the time, and they come in and say it's training over already, like, yeah, great, well done. But you know, it's hard, but, you know,
that sounds of a coach.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, it's great. Well, Adrian, thank you so much. Boss, as always, thank you so much for coming on, supporting me, and everyone on the other side. Thank you so much. And this will be recorded. We'll hopefully have the recording up a little bit later today. But Adrian, thank you again so much. A lot of positives in the chat box. Outstanding, amazing presentation, so on. So fantastic as always. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. Very excited to actually see you guys. I'd like to see you in person again sometime soon. It seems like we haven't been together as a group in a long time.
That might be dangerous getting us together.
It should be. We should get the band back together.
Well, thanks, Adrian. Thanks, Vince. Great job.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Be safe, everyone.
Thank you.